Hello, Maryland and DC, Odyssey of the Mind coaches. This is Betsy, your tournament director. Are you guys ready for tournament? You better be because it's just around the corner. This is your tournament day prep video, otherwise known as I survived months of this stuff, so now what? I'm here to talk to you about what tournament day looks like. When you get up in the morning and you bring all your stuff, this is what you need to do once you reach the school. You're going to be checking in at registration. Then you're going to have your long-term and spontaneous problems. Some may have long-term first, then spontaneous. Some teams may have spontaneous and then long-term. It's just however it needed to fit into the schedule. You will pick up your long-term scores about an hour after your long-term performance. And then after all of that and all that hard work, you'll go to the award ceremony and see it pay off. Now, before you check in, you and your kids have worked hard, so don't let the details trip you up. Remember to have all of your required documents to check in, and then you can receive your team packet. I have to say, out of all the years that I've done this, this is the one that I've seen teams get tripped up the most and lose a lot of score points for, because they've done the style in particular form quickly without detail needed to give the judges the help that they need to recognize the great work that your kids have done. We'll go over that more in a little bit, but let's look at what should be turned in at the check-in desk. You have your media consent form, which is on Maryland Odyssey of the Mind, so that's mdodyssey.org. If you go under the coaches page, you have files and forms. You can find all of these forms there. There's the media consent form. Each team member and coach needs to have one of these signed and there, or else they are not performing with the rest of their team. You need to have a team code of conduct form, which is signed by the coaches and the team member. Another, if you don't have this, you're not competing. The team list form is a little bit special. It is highly recommended. It is depending on which problem you're doing, so it's unique to the problem. What it is basically is a Cliff Notes version that you give the judges so that they're watching for what they need to be scoring on, so that they spend their time watching the things that they need to instead of being confused. So this is so beneficial to have your teams turn in 4 copies of that, but it is not required. There's one cost form, which is required for every single problem. You'll be filling that out. Your kids will be filling that out. Have them list every single item that is within their solution, and you can find the worth and cost of those items in the problem guide. The outside assistance form, which is letting us know if the team had any help from outside sources. You'll receive a much less penalty if you report it than if your kids tell us later, Jimmy's dad did this. It'll be a lot more understanding that way. Your style form, you need to have 4 copies of this, one for each of the judges. This is a required form, and it tells us, the style judges, what you want scored. There are 2 required categories for each problem. Those will be filled in on 1 and 2. On 3 and 4 is always the free choice of the team. Each team will pick 2 items within all of their pizzazz in their solution that they want the judges to grade them on, basically. These are the best and brightest, the things that they're most proud of. The thing that's important is to make sure that you're being specific and make sure that it is not already scored in any other problem, which you can determine by reading, I believe it's the D score area in your problem. So pay attention. This is one of those things that happens every single year. You will not receive your registration packet and be able to compete without those 4 copies of the style form, 1 cost form, 1 outside assistance form, media release forms for each team member and coach, a code of conduct form, and we still recommend that you bring the team list form. But make sure you have that done. You'll save valuable time for you and for us, and keep everything on schedule if you have these done before you get to tournament. Now here's a pro tip. Clarifications. I know that we've had a good number of clarifications submitted this year, and if your team is one of them, be sure to print out the clarifications and bring them with you. You give them to your staging judge, and they will make sure that they're given to the judges, and you can be scored with the questions that you asked in mind. However, if you didn't submit a clarification, did you know that Odyssey of the Mind has public clarifications? That is when a question has been asked that is not individual to a team solution, but about the problem as a whole that every team should be able to know. You can find those on odysseyofthemind.com under clarifications and your problem. You should be familiar with those because the judges will be scoring based on those public clarifications within a night of the tournament. Now let's talk about the check-in process. This is what's going to happen. You're going to come into the school. Now as you go into the school, there's going to be a sign that tells you right where to go for registration desk. You're going to walk up to that table and you're going to tell the volunteer your school, the problem you're competing in, and the name of the coach. And then they're going to hand you a manila envelope, and you're going to verify that the label on the packet is your team. Now, if you look inside that packet, there's a welcome letter, a map, a white score pickup card, which is an index card, a pastel spontaneous checking card, which is also an index card. Both of those will have like a little return address label that has your team's information on it. Do not lose these cards. There will also be participation ribbons for D1 and D2 or certificates for D3. You're going to give the volunteer your 4 completed style forms. They're then going to put those in the packet. You're going to give the volunteer 1 completed cost form. Then you're going to put that form in the packet. You're going to give the volunteer 1 completed outside assistant form, and they're going to put that in the packet. Do you see a theme? Now, optionally, you give the volunteer 4 copies of your team list. If you do that, then those forms will also go into the packet, but it's only optional. Then you're going to give them media release forms for every member of your team and the coach, and that will stay at registration. That does not go back in the packet. You're going to give the volunteer your team conduct form. That is also going to stay at registration. You don't need those two. Our volunteers will review your performance time and locations, go over it with you with the map, and then you're going to finish checking in. You're going to keep that packet and hang on to those index cards and the packet. They have all of your paperwork that you need, and the index cards are your keys to get your score back or to be able to compete in spontaneous. So now that you've checked in, I want you to look at your schedule. Like I said, some teams have long performance first, and then some teams have their spontaneous times first. It doesn't really matter because either way, you're going to go through the process just the same. For this example, we're going to pretend that you have long-term first and then spontaneous. So here are the steps for competing in long-term. First, you're going to go to staging. Then there's going to be an 8-minute performance by your teams. Then your team is going to show off to the judges. And then after that, you're going to return an hour later for score. Now in staging, you need to go 20 minutes before your long-term performance time that is listed to the staging area, which should be right outside your problem site. You're going to be giving the staging judge your sheets that you just showed the check-in people. You're going to give them those sheets. So that's the 4 style sheets, your cost sheet, your outside assistant sheet, and if you have them, the 4 team form lists. The judge will make sure that the forms have been completed correctly. If there is a mistake and they notice, oh hey, this has actually happened before, they put free choice of team as the style element number 3 instead of choosing a style element, they will give your team the opportunity to make an adjustment if there is time before your team is supposed to go on. If there are technical or size specifications to your problem, then staging will also allow you to have an opportunity to make adjustments within the time before the judges are ready. I can't specify, just go over this enough to help your kids this week. Make sure that they have all their I's dotted, T's crossed, Q's curly cued, just to save them hassle and make sure that they feel comfortable knowing that everything is going to be there for them. Save themselves stress, save you stress, and just have that done. I will say that the exemption to this is balsa. My balsa teams, actually before staging at some time, you are going to go to weigh-in. Just follow the signs to weigh in, and they will go over that pre-staging part with you. You need to be going to weigh in at least an hour before your performance time. Now, here's a pro tip for style. Remember I talked about that? Make sure that free choice of style isn't an element that is already being judged in the other sections, and be detailed so that we know exactly what you've worked hard on. Here's an example that I've seen once. Here was the free choice of team, which would have been 3 and 4. They chose the model of temple and Omer. Then, as trying to explain it, they dressed Omer to look cool and they made a little temple. Now, as you can guess, it was not very detailed. We weren't sure what was cool about Omer. How did they make the temple? What part of it was special other than the fact that they made it? These are very, very general. So in this case, in a different state, they turned this in ahead of time because they did this at regional, and then when they went on to state later, they were able to change it and fix it up. And so this is what their new one looked like. They said the creativity of the temple model. They wanted to show the pharaoh what the temple would look like if it was completely finished with trees and the plants that were mature. They built the temple using cardboard, penny rolls, Play-Doh, goldfish crackers, model train trees, and silk flowers. As you can see, that's way more detailed, so we understand what they did that made it so special, as opposed to, yep, you build a smaller version of it. Okay, next. This is what really helps your teams beforehand show the judges how much work they put into it. Now, there's the 8-minute performance. All props need to stay within the staging area until the announcer says, time begin. After that, hands off, coaches and parents. It's not your problem. Do not help or remind your team about the lines or what comes next. Do not help them get their props out onto the stage floor. Even though you mean well, it can result in a penalty for your team. Don't even help with hair or makeup or fix a part of their costume. It is all up to them that day. Now, after their time ends and your team gives the cue to let the judges know that they're finished, clap, 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 but stay in your seat. This is where the kids get to shine. The judges are going to be applauding and then go up and ask the kids questions on how they came up with the solution. They're going to ask who made the props, whose idea was it to use this supply, what made them think of doing this sort of thing. This is where your teams will brag about how they were so unique and creative. And it also gives our judges a chance to see up close, because sometimes these little guys don't enunciate as loud as we would like to, or things get blocked by the positions of their bodies. So in case they weren't able to see clearly, they can go up and see and ask questions about it later so that they can get every score point those teams deserve. Now, after the judges walk away, hurry as fast as you can to hug your teams and then help them get their props off the stage so that we can stay on time. And then celebrate. All that hard work has paid off. Now, an hour later, you're going to go collect your scores. You're going to give that little white index card that I told you to hang on to the head judge. They will have some sticker on them that says head judge. They will also be wearing a blue shirt as opposed to the white shirts that are for teams on sale. You're going to review your scores with the head judge. You will have 30 minutes to protest any of the objective scores. If it is a style score, it is not able to be protested. But if it is an objective score of whether something happened or did not happen, you can protest that later. Now, you've done the long term, so what's the step for spontaneous? Well, first you have spontaneous check-in. Then from there you go to spontaneous holding. From there, the teams have spontaneous problem, and after that is the code of silence. For spontaneous check-in, 15 minutes before your scheduled spontaneous time on your card in your packet, you want to take that colored index card from your registration packet and go to the spontaneous check-in table. There will be signs leading for that. Now, no one goes beyond that table except for the people who have given that card. So you want to make sure that you have that card, otherwise you're not getting to perform. Now, you want to take that colored card back once they verify, yes, it is your turn and we're ready for you. The volunteers will now take your team and one coach back to the spontaneous holding room. Now, spontaneous holding room is where you wait until the problem has been reset and the other team is gone, and so the judges are ready for you. You'll have probably that 15 minutes, 10 minutes to hang out and play and relax your team. Often coaches will bring a deck of cards or a silly word game or taboo, those kind of things. It's to relax your team. They're nervous. This is a problem that they haven't prepared for. When the room is ready, a volunteer will come back to the holding room and get your team. You're going to hand the volunteer your colored card so they make sure that they're taking your team to the right room, because nothing stinks worse than being taken to the wrong room and having to do it twice. So the volunteer will take your team to their problem while you stay in the holding room and wait. So they will have 5 team members solve that problem, and you will wait for them in holding, but after they're finished, they will be brought back to you. Now, we tell them after they are judged at Spontaneous what a great job they've done, but it's top secret. The first rule about Spontaneous is that we don't talk about Spontaneous. The second rule about Spontaneous is we still don't talk about Spontaneous. So do not discuss the problem or solution with your team. Don't let your teams talk about it with each other. Other teams are listening, and they still may need to solve the same Spontaneous problem you did. You don't want to give them an advantage. And even after the tournament, we use the same Spontaneous problems across the world. So other teams or tournaments that come after ours, we don't want them to know the answer ahead of time. So please, no public posting or talking about it where it can get back to these other teams.
So what do I do when I'm not competing? Well, we invite you to visit our sales booth. That's where we're going to be selling last year's pins, last year's World Final pins, and if our luck is good, then our pins will have arrived from this year. The coronavirus has affected the production of our pins in the factories in China. This is not just us, this is all the states. So there's going to be completely different things going on with everyone's pins throughout different states. However, we should definitely have them by World Finals if we don't have them at our state tournament. We're going to have food and snacks available for purchase. Assuming that the food trucks show up outside, we'll have those. You can also go pick up yourself up pizza or some fast food, and then we should have some small snacks and drinks available to purchase. Bring games for your friends to play, for your teams to play, to make new friends. Complete the scavenger hunt paper that we're going to have available. That's where your teams can go meet new teams, meet officials, and find out all about other OMERs. Go watch other performances. Support other groups as well as get an idea and a little window into how other teams work together or create their props. Lastly, for the day, you're going to have awards. So after all the teams have been scored, which that should be completed, I think all the teams are finished by 3 o'clock, and then after that all the coaches have had their opportunity to review their scores and rebut anything if they need to, we'll be holding awards assembly in the auditorium. We're shooting for 4, but as you know, sometimes time gets away or something changes that puts us behind schedule. If your team wins an award, they will go on stage to receive their medals. Now, this is something that has always been listed in the bylaws, but it's something I need everybody to pay attention this year. There are certain divisions and problems that do not have competition. So just because you place first, because there are no other teams competing, does not mean that you automatically go to World Finals. To advance to World Finals, you need to place first or second, or have a Renata Fusca, and have all of the elements required in the spirit of the problem to be present within your performance, even if they don't work. So let's say you are the only team competing in vehicle for Division 3. And so, of course, you would win, but you don't have a vehicle. Well, then you're not going to advance to World Finals. However, if you have a vehicle and it just breaks down and doesn't work, but you still had it, then you can advance. Let's talk really quick about Renata Fusca. That is an award that is nominated for a team or a person for outstanding creativity by the judges only. An example of this would be a few years back, a team completed their balsa structure without using any glue at all, just using notch and peg technique. Now, it didn't particularly work in the sense that it didn't hold a lot of weight, but it was still an extremely creative way to go about doing it, and so it won a Renata Fusca. We only give those out maybe once a year, but usually every other year, just depending on when we see something that creative that we haven't come across before. Now, as for an OMER award is presented to someone who really exemplifies the spirit of OMER and what this program is all about. So that's not creativity per se, but going above and beyond to make this program work, whether it's in attitude or the amount of things done. It's going forward when everything else has gone wrong and making it happen anyway. Teams can nominate someone, parents can, coaches can, judges can, board can. We don't give out a lot of them because we get a lot of submissions, but go ahead and give them back to registration if you see something that is particularly above and beyond working for this program. A few thoughts. To remind you, tournament is March 22nd at Bel Air Middle School. Okay guys, performances start at 9. Do not show up at the tournament until registration opens at 8. I do not want to see people outside with props at 7. That's what happened last year. Everybody got there before us, so we were not ready to handle teams. So I'm not going to let you in unless you are a board member or a judge. You are not coming inside the school until 8 a.m. Please, if you have your first performance at 10 or 11 or 12, allow teams with that early registration time to go first. Make sure that you have all of your forms ready before you go to the registration table. Let's talk about state shirts for a second. So this year, because we've grown and we're really excited and doing well, we wanted to provide all of the teams that are going to be attending World Finals with one free shirt so that they can wear it at the ceremonies and the parade so that we can be together as one big Maryland DC groups. Because of this, we're not going to be selling shirts at states. I may have 1 or 2 extra judges shirts that will be available for sale if I have any, but there will be shirts available for sale online. Let's say you don't advance to World Finals, or you advance to World Finals but just want extra shirts, then you can buy them online. Pins will be available online if they don't ship here in time for states. So if you're not advancing to World Finals but you still want to pick up a set, we've got a pretty cool set this year. We have 8 problem pins and 1 big state dragon. It's going to be really exciting. You can still purchase them as many as you want, even if you're not going to be trading them, just so that you can have it for your own memories. And again, we're hoping to start awards at 4 o'clock. If you still have any questions, email us at tournament@mdodyssey.org, and I will be happy to answer any questions if I can, and if I don't know it, I will push it up to somebody who does. Again, thank you guys so much for all that you do for the program. I really believe in it, and I hope you guys too, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.